where I see on my screen, it's Ryno talking to you. I am youth. Used to be my favorite Monday evening. I loved listening to Ryno, Slick Vic, and Marno. Hey?
Yeah, Marno.
Remember those days?
Yeah, those were the good days.
And here you are again.
Coming back. You can't stay away. Yeah, so thanks for having me, Brad.
Yeah, what a pleasure.
Really good being here.
I'm never really sure how to introduce Ryno Turketti. He's a former radio presenter right here at Radio Cape Pulpit, award-winning radio presenter. He's an entrepreneur. He's a worship leader. He's a family man, and he's also a singer, and he's got a single out, and we're going to share that with you a little bit later on. We're going to talk about it. But since Viara Coffee, the sponsors us here in breakfast, and we're happy to talk about Viara. So how's business going?
Yeah, business is going well, despite what's happening in the world with the coffee prices. Coffee is the second biggest commodity in the world after oil. And obviously with what's happening in the world, it's had a big impact on the coffee price. So we're going to feel it only now. So I was in the East and seeing what's happening. They already absorbed it. And you couldn't find a coffee under 100 Rand in the East. Yeah.
Goodness.
Anything from $9 to $12 for a cup of coffee is what you paid. And so I think we're gonna get it somewhere down the line in South Africa. But despite of that, hey man, I have to say God has been faithful towards our company. We're growing. The roastery is growing. Yeah, so we're very excited about the future and where we're going with it. Yeah,
that's so good. So we love being able to encourage you as well to when you're in the area. Viara Coffee, just where our building used to be at the San Tiger. They've got a branch over there. Are you looking at expanding any more branches opening soon?
Yeah, so for now, we've got Sun Tiger and Tiger Park. So just you right in the middle now between the two shops. I actually walked from the one shop here. So we just want to focus now on the roasting part of it. There's such a demand for coffee and good quality but good value coffee. I think that's a big thing. So we've been partnering now and networking with a couple of people to make sure that we can keep costs as low as possible for people when buying their favorite coffee in South Africa. So we're really focusing on that. So we're focusing on the roastery part of it. So for the rest of 2025 and 2026, that's what we'll be focusing on. And keep the two shops that we've got currently now, and then after that we'll grow further into the shops.
Yeah, with the coffee culture that's there, I think people are somehow going to figure out what they'll have to go without so that they don't have to give up coffee.
Exactly. There was a thing, they called it the lipstick effect in the Second World War. The sales of lipstick actually went up. So they, like you said, they sacrificed something else because it was the only affordable thing that still gave women a little bit of dignity was lipstick. And now, all the great marketing guys and gurus are speaking about coffee will be the next lipstick effect. Your cup of coffee is what will keep you going. It's also something that gives you a bit of dignity sometimes walking around with your cup of coffee, just showing I could still at least afford a good cup of coffee.
Exactly. Now, it's one thing to talk about business, and business is growing and business is good and there's travel, but the truth is life isn't always easy. And so we're talking about Ryno's new single, Faith Over Fear, stepping out in trusting God. You said something that you've got two choices. You can either just give in and to the fear that you're experiencing in life because it happens to all of us, or you can trust God. And there's no middle ground here as well. You either got to make a choice for God or almost against God, even in the middle of dealing with the difficulties of life.
Yeah, no, 100%. So I think the last couple of years was quite intense for me, and I went through at a place that I worked at, went through a very, very rough time, and there was a CCMA case, and it was just, you're in a bad space, and then I had a meeting with one of my pastors that I knew. He's a mentor of mine, and he's like, Ryno, I hate to say it to you, but you're borderlining on depression and struggling with anxiety.
Wow.
And you need to go see someone. And I'm like, it's impossible. I'm not struggling with it. He's like, no, you borderline, you are going to struggle with it pretty soon, and you're already struggling with it. And my first was like, I'm a man.
Yeah.
I'm a surfer, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm strong, and you have all these thoughts, that's Christ in me, I'm more than a conqueror, and I felt like he's disrespecting me for telling me this. But after a couple of days and this letting it sink in, and you realize we as humans are so vulnerable, and fear can grip a hold of us so very quickly. And And I realized that when my creativity started just shrinking. So the first thing that when you're starting to struggle maybe with depression or anxiety, you start pulling inwards, and your creativity just dries up completely.
Wow.
And but that's a bit of a catch-22, because creativity is one of the things that can actually, you help you through a difficult time. And I was really seeking God in all of this, and I was like, Lord, you need to help me now, because if this is it, this is not a road that I want to go. What am I doing? You're the creator, God. You are creativity itself, because you created the universe, you created us, and just spending time with God. And I really felt like just started writing. And the first things that I write was little stories for my son. So he started this little cartoon for him, and then started writing blogs, and all of a sudden you're just feeling like, and then you still see the storm with the economy in South Africa. You've lost your job. You're going into starting a completely new business, basically. And then this is now the only thing that's going to pull me through is trusting God.
Yes.
The storm is there. You need to go out. You need to step out on the water and walk on water. And that's what inspired the song basically for me.
Yeah, and I think for people that are listening this morning, going through a difficult time doesn't mean your Christianity has failed. It doesn't mean that you have now failed or you're doing something wrong. And I think that's the way a lot of people feel. I'm a believer in Jesus. I should always be on the up and up, and everything should be good. And I think that's a misconception.
100%.
Yeah.
So one of the Bible stories that inspired this was when the disciples, just after feeding 5,000 people, and then Jesus told them, listen here, get in the boat, sail to the other side. And he said he's going to stay a little bit behind. So if you're some of them were very experienced fishermen. And so for me as a surfer, the first thing I do in the morning, I check the weather. What's the weather doing? Is there a cold front on its way? If it's northwest, I know what's happening. If it's southeast, you know what's happening. And I'm pretty sure those guys should have seen, like, what's happening on the horizon there? What is Jesus thinking? He's sending us into a storm right now. And the obedience was there, so the storm was there. And Jesus, also the all-knowing God, knew there was a storm coming. And he's like, guys, just get in the boat, just go over. So the storm wasn't a surprise for Jesus. And I think exactly the same for us in our lives today. If there's a storm coming on our lives, it doesn't surprise God. God doesn't go, oh no, what do we do now in this situation? And in that time, Jesus called Peter out to walk on water. So his step of faith wasn't on a calm, sunny, beautiful day, and the sea was flat. And, that could have been easy to practice faith. Jesus could have maybe taken him down on a beautiful summer's day in Melkbos, and it was just flat, no waves, whatever. Come, let's try and practice this. But in the middle of the storm, when the waves was big, he called out Peter. He's like, come on, man, try it now. Walk on water. Where's your faith? And I think that's where our faith gets tested and where it really shows is in those difficult times.
And I think, Ryno, you've got to know God. If you don't know 100%. God, it's one thing saying I'm a believer, but to know God. We were talking this morning out of Hebrews 6 of saying God is a promise maker and a promise keeper. And I'll read it here in front of me. It says, God did this so that by two unchangeable things in which it is impossible for God to lie, we have fled to take hold of the hope set before us. May we be greatly encouraged. And we have this hope as an anchor for our soul. So we're not going to be able to anchor ourselves in hope if we don't know who God is and we don't know that we can trust him. Because it's that point, I think, when our faith will completely fail. Here's a tough time. God's probably not going to be here. He's left me. That's why I'm struggling. So we need to know God.
100%. And I think also just with that story in the Bible is where they saw Jesus just do one of the biggest miracles ever. And I think that must have been feeding all those crowds with just the fish and the bread. And I think that something must have stirred hope and faith in Peter when he walked on water. And I think, like you said, if we don't know Jesus, if we don't know God, if we don't know what he's capable of, we shouldn't allow our minds as well, because our minds will sometimes just limit God to what we think he is able to do.
Yes.
That's why we need the Holy Spirit to guide us and need the Word of God, which is inspired by him, to see these vast miracles, there's open doors of what God is able of doing. And I love that word theology, because theology just means the study of God. And we need to study God, not just the stories. We need to study God. What's his Father heart like for us, that he is for us. Even in the middle of the storm, God is there, and not limit what God can do by our thoughts, but allow the Holy Spirit to show us what God is able to do through the Word and through Scripture.
So what you're saying is, if I know God and I know his Word, when not if, but when the difficult times come, for us to say, God, I know that you're with me here in the boat and you can calm the storm. So you and me together, we're going to get through this. And that's the confidence that we need.
100%.
Yeah.
I agree with you 100% on that. And I think that's what made Paul started worshiping in the middle of prison.
Yeah.
You know, bound up, not a great future ahead of him in that moment. And, you know, he knew God. He knew what God is all about. And just like, even in this, God is still worthy of our praise.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what's happening with me. It doesn't matter what's happening around us. God still stays worthy of our praise. Let's worship him because he's still so big. And if you know God, that's what it will lead to.
Yeah, and these conversations all around a song called Faith Over Fear. Now, we've heard you sing. We've heard you sing in church. You've sung in the studio here on Worship Drive. And I'm sure you've been writing songs in the background for years. How come now deciding to push this one out and recording a single and making it available on radio?
So I think it is a step of faith. Even though, you know, when it's easy to hide behind a guitar and a genre of worship when you're in church. So we've sort of taken a sabbatical from just being involved full time in the church now. Still in part of communities, but just taking a bit of a break. And then you realize all of a sudden, a lot of times you've done worship as a job. You know, you come in with your guitar and you hide behind your guitar and the music that you know and the chords. Because all the worship songs, basically, it's just made of 4 chords and it's same verse, rhythm, verse, chorus. It's got a bridge and it goes again. Yeah. So you hide it behind what you know in just that familiar space where you're at. And when I started, when I was going through and I was just writing this, and it was a prayer for me. I choose to walk upon it. I choose faith over fear. And I was, you know, and when I went into meetings for our business, I was like, okay, Lord, I'm going to choose faith over fear. I'm not going to be fearful. And then just this melody came along and I started writing it. And then I've always had this this dream of maybe writing a song. Yeah. And that's when and that's when I just said, look, I'm going to do it. You know, for me, you're vulnerable. You're getting people to know, like, because a studio is very unforgiving when you're recording because you hear every fault in your voice. And I was like, it doesn't matter about it. It's about the heart for me. It's about encouraging people. You know, and it was so great to hear a lot of people, the theme for them this year is faith over fear.
Wow.
You know, and I think just especially with what's going on, I've had a couple of people just like, hey, we're so encouraged by the song. We're encouraged by what you were saying and we're in the same journey. And that for me was like, okay, it was a God thing. It's taken me 42 years to do it, but it's a God thing. And that's where we're at. Yeah.
What I love about what you've just said here is, we've got to just be prepared to go and do something that's really difficult, that really stretches us, but know that we're part of, I'm sharing my story and it's resonating with someone else. You can sing, I can't, so you can do it as a song and people can listen to it and they can be encouraged and we're going to play it on the air. Radio stations all around are playing it on the air. People are listening to it and it's starting to change people from the inside out. I mean, maybe when you write it, you're more like, I want to tell my story. But you'll never really know how many people's lives you're impacting by simply speaking what they're already thinking. Yeah. So, well done, Ryno. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. Yeah, no, and I think like faith comes by hearing.
Yeah.
You know, so, and I think it was really just a time of waiting and just when God says that the time is right, that's when you do it. You know, then it is a time to tell your story, and He works out everything.
So you've said now it's taken you 42 years to get here. Has the bug bitten you and saying, look, I think I can do this again and maybe God willing again and again?
Definitely. No, definitely. I think this has just released something, you know, because you're never going to know if you don't go and if you don't take that first step. So it always starts just with that one little step that you have to take. So, you know, just reaching out to Gideon Murray, the guy that and who owns a studio and helped me with the song. That already for me was a stressful moment. Yeah. Like, you know, just picking up the phone and calling. And I was like, hey, Gideon, I don't know if you remember me. We quickly chatted. And I was so just nervous about speaking to him about it. And, you know, but then the second time I was like, hey, Gideon, I've got this idea now for a new song. Are we on it? You know?
Confidence.
So you just need to take that first step. So, maybe just encouragement for someone. Just take that first step. The best place just to start is just to begin. Just begin with it.
And who knows what you could do? Ryno stepped out and he was nervous initially and now he's got a song out and you can listen to it on the radio and we believe it. I've listened to the song, I've read the lyrics. It's the kind of stuff we need for this season. It's a space where sometimes we feel uncomfortable with the life that we've got. We feel uncomfortable with the decisions that are being made around us that affect us directly. and we want to live in fear. And he's saying, no, but our faith is stronger than our fear. So may someone who stepped out of his comfort zone and out of a place of fear into a place of faith encourage you with his journey. What I'm also trying to say is your story matters that's listening right now. What God has taken you through. You might not be able to sing it like Ryno, but you can tell it, you can share it, you can encourage somebody else. Don't let the difficulties that you faced go to waste. Use it to be able to encourage somebody else. Ryno, anything you want to say before you head out? Any last words? You want to say hi to anyone?
Oh, hi, I think to my son.
Hey.
Yeah, so that's another story of faith. He's turning 3, or he's turning 4, he's 3.5 years already. But just, I think that was one of the stories of faith. The journey, 10 years that we waited for him. And, whenever I'm in a difficult situation and I've got a picture of him on my phone and I look at it and I'm just like, if God could create him, what's this little issue now? So always just look for those pockets of hope. And, I know a lot of people say never look back. Yeah. I'm one of those firm believers. Look at the altars you've built. Look at those beacons of faith, of hope. The previous stuff that God has done, those stories of hope encourages other people. It's testimonies that changes people's lives. And don't be shy to share your testimony with people to encourage them.
Thanks so much. That's Ryno Turketti. He's a radio man, but he's also a music man, a businessman, and he's reminding us to look for pockets of hope. I wrote that down. That's very powerful. That's one of those things. Tweet it, everybody. Look for pockets of hope. What is it in your life that God has been doing that build your faith? And I've often said this on that, looking back, sometimes the enemy wants to take you back and rub your nose in the past. Those are moments that you turn to praise. Like, okay, look how far I've come from there to here. Sure. And also when our faith feels flimsy, just think back. Remember, God did that, like with the Israelites that piled those 12 stones up where they crossed the Jordan. That was, at that time, forever for them, a reminder of the faithfulness of God. He's brought you this far and he will carry you on. Thanks, Ryno.
Thanks, Brad. Appreciate it.
Like hanging out with Ryno. And thanks that I could hang out with you this whole week. I sound a bit different this Friday than I did on Monday. We'll see what Monday holds. Thanks so much that today I could get you up and get you going. Thanks for our time in the Word. Thanks for opportunities to share what Peter Hammond wanted to share this morning. Thanks that Hein Kruger could have shared of his heart, experience, and expertise as well. Thanks for every one of you that has messaged. I'm back, God willing, Monday morning to get you up and get you going. Someone else here on the WhatsApp line also says, pockets of hope. Beautiful. Thanks, Ryno. So you're touching people with the message you're sharing and with your music. Here's Faith Over Fear from Ryno Turketti. I'll catch up with you again on Monday morning.